Welty Environmental Center. Today we are going to do a couple of different crafts to help us become better naturalists. A naturalist is someone who studies the environment but isn't necessarily a professor or an expert. So someone like me, someone like you, and we can build our knowledge by doing a few fun things. So today, one of the fun things that we're going to do is we are going to press plants. To press plants, you're going to need a couple of things to do this with me. And I recommend cutting some cardboard like this that's just slightly larger than a piece of paper. See how the paper fits on the inside there of our cardboard? Good. A few other things that will come in handy. A pencil, some scissors, a specimen collection bag, some glue, and a paintbrush, and maybe some yarn or string. I also like to find something that's about this size to help me create labels. So this is just a business card, or you can use a credit card or any of those cards that we carry around in our wallets. All right, so the first thing that we need to press plants are plants. So what we're going to do is we're going to head out and we are going to use our bag and our scissors to go collect some samples. Okay, we are outside, and I'm here at Big Hill Park in Beloit, Wisconsin. It's a really fun place to find specimens for plant journals. You don't have to be at a big public park like I am. You can do this outside your own home. Anytime you go on a walk, you can collect plants. Plants are everywhere, so you don't have to go to a big park like Big Hill, although they are a lot of fun. So I've got my collection bag for specimens, and I've got my scissors. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to walk over here, and we are going to take our first specimen. So the reason why you would take specimens to press them is so that you can better identify them next time and also be able to understand some of the plant's phenology. Phenology is another big word that naturalists like to use, and phenology really is just the study of what happens to plants when. So when does a plant flower? When does it come up out of the ground? When does it lose its leaves and turn brown? So here, what I have here is some young goldenrod. And I am going to take a small snippet of our young goldenrod so that I can put it into my collection journal. Now you don't need a lot. Remember, you're trying to fit this onto a 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. So you don't want to take samples that are too big. Okay, so I'm going to put that into my sample collection bag here. And we're going to go and we're going to try to collect some other super fun things. So, I noticed something really fun over here in our fire pit at Big Hill Center that will eventually get burned when we start a fire. So I don't feel too bad about taking samples from it. We have this really big thistle. Now, a lot of plants, you got to be careful with what you take. Like our thistle here has really sharp points on it that make it kind of prickly. So I'm just going to take a nice leaf like this and put it into my sample bag. I'm going to let the flowers grow because the flowers here are going to be pretty nice for pollinators if the plant survives before we start another fire. All right, we're going to head on over here. I see some flowering plants. Let's go take a look. So So one thing that you want to make sure that you're doing is you are respecting property, okay? So make sure that you have permission to take samples from any plants that you take from. So, for example, if you go into your neighbor's yard and you start taking samples, your neighbor might get kind of upset. So please make sure that you're respecting property and are taking samples where it seems to be okay. So if you could come on over here, I'm going to show you another really nice plant that's growing here, this nice little viney thing. And again, you know, I don't know the names of all of these plants. That's the part of the fun of doing some of this naturalist work, is that when I create my journal, the next time I find this plant, I'll know what it is. Or I have my own little guide to be able to check it against. So I'm going to just take a nice snippet here, and I have some nice leaves and some buds. And this one also has lots and lots of flowers. And this one, I think I'm going to take a sample of one of the flower stems so that I can look it up. And I'm going to place that also in my sample bag. Okay, we're going to go check out another spot. We'll be right back. Take a couple more samples real quick here. I see this nice little ferny plant that will look really nice when pressed on a piece of paper. So I'm going to take that and I'm going to add it to my specimen bag. Now, if you don't have these types of wild plants around, you can easily take samples from trees and make your own tree journal and press tree leaves. And so I'm just going to take a couple of leaves from this tree here, just a small sprig off the end that I can put into my journal. And I'll show you my tree journal that I created in 1986. It's still around and it's pretty awesome. Something else that you might want to take a sample of, this stuff grows everywhere. These are grape vines. And I'm going to add that to my collection bag. All right, I have some pretty good specimens to turn into a beginning of a pressed plant journal. So let's go ahead and head inside and we will begin making our journals. All right, I'll meet you inside. Okay, we're back inside where we can get started on our pressed plant journal, or at least pressing our plants. So I'm going to just quickly get out my specimens and lay them out here on the table so that I can work with them and remember what I picked up. Now, remember, I did pick up something with spiny thorns, so if you did that, be careful when reaching into your specimen bag. All right, I'm going to put my specimen bag off to the side, and we are going to get started. You're going to want one of your blank pieces of paper and your rectangle and a pencil. Now, what I recommend doing is taking the lower left or right hand corner, and I like to use the right hand corner, and just use your pencil to draw around the outside of your rectangle. What you're doing here is making a nice place to create a label, and in your label you're going to want to put the date you collected it, where you collected it, and what it's called. Okay, so I'm going to pick up one thing that I already know, and that is the grape leaf. And I'm going to position the grape leaf on my paper. I'm going to take my glue and my paintbrush, and I'm going to take a little bit of glue on my paintbrush, and I'm going to put it on the stem of my grape leaf, and then position it way that I like it and leave it right there. So I'm going to hold this up for you and see we have our grape leaf and we have our label. I am going to add my label and be right back. Our grape leaf, I have added a little bit of glue and affixed it to our page. I've added our label, Big Hill Park, June 3rd, 2020, and we have a grape leaf. So this page is ready. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of my pieces of cardboard, lay that on the cardboard, and then take a second sheet and put it on top. And I'm going to add some of the others to my sheet and creating a sandwich effect. And I'll be right back to show you that sandwich effect. Here are the samples that we've taken, and we are going to now build our pressing sandwich. But I wanted to go over what I found a little bit. So here we have that grape leaf that I found, and you can see here that I labeled it Big Hill Park, June 3rd, 2020, grape leaf. Over here I found that ferny leaf, and when I looked it up, I found that it was a yarrow. And again, you can see here that I labeled it Big Hill Park, June 3rd, 2020, and yarrow. Next, here is the goldenrod, our first sample that we took. Again, remember, make sure that you label Big Hill Park, the date, and what it is. All right, we've got just a couple more here to take a look at. Here is that flowering plant that we took with the little tendrils here. And again, I added the location, the date, and a name. And when I looked it up, this was in the category of vetch. Now, there are 35 different species of vetch, and I'm not sure exactly what this one is, but it is a vetch, and I can always dig deeper at a later date. Let's come on over here. And here's that spiny, pokey thing. You can see on the edges there that it has those thorns. And this is our thistle. Again, make sure that you add the place you found it, the date, and what it's called. Again, there are many, many different types of thistles. So I can go back and try to refine my search and find out exactly what type of thistle this is at another point. All right, let's stack these up. So I'm going to start with my grape leaf, and I'm going to take my yarrow and just place it right on top. And just keep going here, placing my cardboard layers in between my plant layers. There. And as you can see, it creates kind of a sandwich. And they're not pressed, so you can see here that there's lots of gaps. Well, to continue going, I need to add a lid. And then what I'm going to do here quickly is take some string, and I'm going to tie it and make a nice neat package for transportation. In case I'm doing this on site, I can transport them home before putting them under some heavy objects. I'll show you that in just a moment. Now I have this all tied up, and if you bring your materials with you and you want to do this in a park at a picnic table, it's a nice neat package here that you can transport with you. The plants stay nice tucked in there where they're supposed to be. They're not going to slide around because I've glued them down a little bit, and now I've got them tied and secure. But let's say that we get them home And the next step is to press them. Well, if you have them in a nice, neat stack like this, there's a couple things that you can do. One, you can find a nice, big, tall stack of heavy books. And you're just going to take them and put the heavy books down on top of your box. And you're going to leave them there for, at minimum, 2 weeks. The longer you leave them, the better the result. So I would recommend leaving them for at least a month. All right, so we are back with a few other options for collecting your specimens and preserving them. Remember, pressing them with the cardboard and the rocks or heavy stacks of books, that's only one way. Another way is that you can find a nice spiral-bound journal because they have extra room in them. And you can do exactly the same thing where you find a plant and use a little bit of glue or tape to adhere it so it doesn't slide around. Create your label, and then once you close the book, then pile heavy objects on top of your book, and you can keep adding to it. Now, this was collected on 6/27/2018 out here at Big Hill Park, and I thought it was Queen's Anne's lace. Boy, was I wrong. All right, and this is a cautionary tale for going out and collecting plants. This is actually wild parsnip. And wild parsnip, if you know your plants, has a chemical inside them that when you cut them and it gets on your skin and you're exposed to sunlight, creates blisters and burns. And so I will never collect wild parsnip again. I have learned my lesson. All right, so that's one other way that you can do this. Another way is to create your journal. Now, I did tell you about my leaf journal that I collected in 1986 as a kid, and my mother saves everything, so I have this really great tool to share with you today. In here, we just have regular lined paper. Now, some of you might be like, I need to use acid-free paper, acid-free glue, acid-free penciling. Well, you can if you're thinking about preserving it for a very long time and you don't want to see any yellowing. You can use those acid-free materials, and I would encourage it. But for kids, you know, this works out just fine. Remember, I created this in 1986, and it is 2020. It has survived a long time. And so in here, I just went around my neighborhood and collected leaves from trees and labeled it. And so here I have a sugar maple, a silver maple, I have a slippery elm, I have a white oak, and you can see here that, and this is where acid-free would come in handy if you really care, is that you can see that there's this large outline of a cottonwood. Well, the cottonwood leaf, let's see if I can find it. The cottonwood leaf leached all the way through those pages. And I think the cottonwood was towards the back. Maybe I'm not going to find that cottonwood. Maybe I took it out. But here's a nice example of a bur oak and a purple mountain oak. Yep, a purple mountain oak. So here are 3 different ways that you can go about creating your own pressed plant journal. So here I have set up our table to do a different type of fun plant activity called plant hammering. Now, plant hammering, when you see it in action, which I'll show you in a few minutes, what we're trying to do is we're removing the pigment within the plant cells. Plant cells are square and animal cells are more roundish. The plant cells have really thick walls that hold their pigment inside. And when you pop those cells, the pigment runs out. It's why when you go running and you accidentally fall and slide in the grass, that your clothes get grass stains on them. Is that what you've done is you've popped those plant cells, and the pigment is now running out of the cells and leaching into your clothes. So we're going to do it on purpose. Some things that help this process along include having a hammer, pair of scissors, packing tape, or Scotch tape. Either one will work. It's nice to have an iron, and you need cloth to put your plant on. Now here I have a nice small square of old curtain that I cut up. You can use any sort of fabric for fun. You don't have to run out and buy anything. If you have an old white t-shirt, you can cut that up into nice squares to give this a shot. But white is the color of fabric that works the best. So I used all of my specimens in creating my plant journal. So what we're going to do now is we're going to head on back out, and we're going to try to find a nice plant specimen or two to we're out here again at Big Hill Park in Beloit, Wisconsin, and I'm going to take a few samples for our plant hammering. Now remember, our cloth was only about 4 by 4 inches, so we don't want to take a very large sample, and it's white. So even though we have these really great wild flowers down here that are white and yellow, the white leaves aren't going to show up on white fabric. Now, we also have these really nice big purple flowers back here. Well, I can tell you from experience, and feel free to try this on your own, you might get better results than I do, is that if they're too chunky, then it turns out as like a big blur. And so when I do plant hammering, I really like to take leaves of plants because they have the nice spines in them, and that helps compartmentalize the pigment so you get a nice shape showing up on your fabric. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take just a couple specimens and go show you what happens when we hammer them. So as an example, I am going to take one of these flowers here just to show you how that turns out. So I'm going to take this flower and put it in my specimen bag. I'm also going to take a couple of these yellow ones here, and I'm going to try them too. But again, they have these nice bulbs. They're going to have a lot of liquid in them, and they might turn out more splotchy. Okay, so one thing that I have had a lot of success with are leaves that have a lot of fluid in them. For example, right here I have a milkweed plant, and I'm going to take one leaf of the milkweed plant. So let's go ahead and head back inside and get ready to hammer some plants. Okay, I've got my specimens, so let's pull them out and let's get them ready. All right, so I'm going to put my specimen bag off to the side, and I have my white piece of fabric. Now, what we want to do here is we want to take our plant and place it on our fabric. Next, what we want to do is create a layer so that the liquid inside of the plant cells only goes one direction. We want it to go into the fabric. And the way that we do that is we cover it with tape. Now I'm using our masking tape here, and you don't want any of the plant exposed. So you really want to take the time to put your tape on the entirety of the plant. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to tape down all 3 specimens, and then we'll head on over to where we're going to hammer. So I'm going to go ahead and tape them up, and then we're going to hammer them. We'll be right back. Okay, so I have taped my specimens onto my fabric. I've got my milkweed plant leaf here. I have my yellow flowers and my purple flower. Now, you want to try to seal these as best you can, because if there are air bubbles, then your plant pigment is going to go any which way it wants. And so again, that's why the tape is there, to try to create only one way for the pigment to go, and that's through the fabric. Okay, so let's head on over here to the floor. I'm not going to pound on my table. And I have a nice flat surface here, and I'm going to start with my milkweed leaf. And it really doesn't matter which side that you hammer on. I like to hammer on the white side so I can see the pigment come up. Now this can be very noisy, so hang in there with me. But as you can see, as soon as I start hammering, the pigment comes up through the fabric rather than onto my board, and that's because of the tape. So let's finish this leaf off. And there you have it. We have a milkweed leaf. You can see that we have the nice spine there and the shape of the leaf. Now there's one more step after hammering before you take the tape off, and I'll show you that in just a moment. But first, let's hammer our other two specimens. There's our yellow flower. Let's try our purple flower. Here's our purple flower. Now our purple flower had a lot of pigment in those petals, and as you can see, it really made sort of a blurry mess there. All right, so let's come on over here and we'll try our last step. And over here I have a hot iron, and this sets the pigment. It also pops any of the cells that haven't been popped yet and creates a better image. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press my iron onto the plant, and I'm going to count to 20. All right, count with me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. All right. Now that's super hot. I'm going to set it aside, and I'm going to do my other two plants, and then we're going to take the tape off and see how well we did. Okay, we've ironed them now, which again released the last of the pigment within the plant cells into our fabric. Now what we're going to do is head back over to my table, and we're going to take off the tape and see what we have. because sometimes the side that looks the best is the side that you hammered, and sometimes the side that looks the best is the side with the tape. And you just never know until you peel that tape off which side turns out the best. So here I've just peeled off the tape, and we can get a close-up there of the tape side. All right, now let me flip it over, and we'll show you the hammer side. And it's really up to you which side you like best. Personally, I think on this one, the tape side came out just a little bit better, even though the colors are lighter. All right, let's check out the other two. All right, so here we go, big reveal. Let's take the tape off of our yellow flowers. And let's get a nice close-up. We'll start with the tape side, and then we'll flip it to the hammer side. And again here, I really think that the tape side is the one that has more definition than the hammer side. All right, we've got one more to go. Let's take a look at our nice purple flower. And let's see here with the tape, big reveal time. Did it work? Did it not work? How did it turn out? It's all practice. Practice in this case is more practice, not necessarily making perfect. All right, so here some of our flour is still stuck to our fabric. We will start again here with the tape side. And I think that that looks really pretty. Let's check out the hammer side. And the hammer side is also really pretty. But again, I prefer the tape side because it gives us a little bit more definition. All right, let me turn you around here and talk about what to do next. All right, we've had a lot of fun today. We have created our own pressed plant journals and talked about several ways that we can go about doing that to become better naturalists. We've also taken time to learn about pigment in plants and how to release that pigment by using hammers and fabric. And you know what? I think we've had an amazingly fun time. I super hope that you check out more of the Aram Public Library's programming and check out Welty Environmental Center's programming. And I hope to see you later this summer.